Hello and welcome to another episode of the How-To Guide Power BI Connector. So after last week's episode, we were talking about attendance. So you can see here I finished building an attendance dashboard. So I have my top line information, days of the week, morning and afternoon, attendance by half term, by month, year group, and then I've got some demographic information on the side here. So we're going to start off actually this week with a little tip. So as you can see here at the moment, our attendance by year group isn't in a particular order. I've got reception year 1, then I've got 10, 11, 12, 13, it goes to year 2. And no matter how I try and sort this, I can't ever seem to get the year groups in order. So I've got some DAX formula we're going to put in this morning to make that possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the students table to do this. So if I just open this more, so you can see here we're using this one called current year group, and that's the value that's assigned into this box here. So you can see there's year group, and that's what we're using. But the problem is if we try and sort by the year group and put some DAX formula in, a bit similar to the way we did the month name and the month sort, it creates a circular query, a bit like an Excel, where you're using one column to sort itself, so we can't do that. Now, if we go into the actual table view for the students table and find the current year group column, here we go. So you can see here we've got one called current year group, and we've also got one called current curriculum grade. Now, in most schools, these are probably going to be the same, if not similar. And we're actually going to create a DAX formula that looks at this column here to create our formula on our sort order. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our report view, click into students, and we're going to do new column. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use a switch formula. So I'm just going to copy some DAX over and paste that in. So here you can see we've got a year sort, which is a switch. So it's a bit like a big version of an if then else formula. So we're going to say, well, if the student's curriculum grade name is equal to reception, give it 1, and so on. We've gone through year 1, year 2, year 3, 4, and so on. And if it's anything else, we're going to give it a number 15. And we're just going to hit enter on that one. So now we have that year sort column under students. If we go down here. So then what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the current year group, and we're going to use this sort by column option at the top bar. So we go sort by column, and we find year sort. And we should find, there we go, that our attendance by year group is now in the correct order. Obviously, with this formula, you can change it depending on the needs of your school and what they're called. In some places, you might have a nursery year 2, or you might only have up to year 6, or you might be in a year 7 to year 11 school. You just amend it as you need to. But as you can see, those are now in order. And also on our characteristics page, we had the year groups on that page. That's also now sorted. And I can sort that then by ascending or descending. And that just sorts that into order for us. So it's a nice little handy tip for you on that one. So this week, our topic is looking at behaviour data. So as you can see, I have already imported 2 tables from the Power BI connector. I've imported behavioural incidents, and I've also done behavioural incidents student involvements. Now you'll find that the behavioural incidents table doesn't include any information regarding the student involvement. So it tells you exactly how many behavioural incidents you've had in that current year, but it won't tell you then which students are involved or how many. So I've imported those tables in, and then we're going to go into our model view to actually connect those tables up. Now you might find that after you've imported them, the system will automatically find relationships. So there is a way of the system going, oh, actually we've got a similar column already, and it will start joining them in. I tend to sort of delete those sometimes and start again from scratch to make my life a little bit easier. But it's up to you. But what we're going to do is we're going to open up these 2 tables here so we can see exactly what we're looking at. and we're going to connect and see how they're connected. So in the first instance, as we have the behavioural incident student involvement, and you can see here it's already pre-linked the student ID for us. So the student unique ID, if we look on the right hand side here, you can see that it's already linked those two tables together and made it active. So that's great. It's also linked the two tables here together. So when you hover over this, you can see there's a behavioural incident ID. Getting there a bit closer there. So it's already linked the behavioural incident ID together. Now, actually, what we want to do is link the unique ID together. So what we can do is we can click on here, and on the right-hand side, we have these properties. We can change the column it's looking at. So we want to look at the incident unique ID for both of these. Because obviously, if you just look at the incident ID, it won't include the school ID number in that. So each school has its own unique ID, and that's what's included in the unique ID. So we need to make sure we do that, and we also need to make sure that the cross-filter direction is both, meaning that we can take information from either one of these tables and it will filter the other table information. And the last thing we need to do is we need to connect the incident date here in the behavioural incidents to the date table. And that way then we can look at data across year groups, academic years, half terms, days of the week, that sort of thing. And again, the cardinality here is a many to one. So there'll be many times that a date appears in the behavioural incidents table, but it only appears once in the date table, and click Save. Now we are going to use this as an opportunity to do some problem solving. So now we've got our data connected, we're going to try and create our new behaviour table dashboard. So if we rename this behaviour, and what we're going to do is we're going to see how many behaviours we've had in each half term over the last year. So we're going to go to our half term and we're going to drag that in. So you can see our half term information here. And then we're going to use the unique ID for the behaviour incident to count how many times, how many instances we've had in total each term. So we're going to drag that over, and then we're going to change the column type to count distinct. Or even we're going to do just count. So I'll just count every single one it have. But you can see here, though, that the half term's vanished. So why is that? Let's do a bit of investigating. So if we go back to our table view, and we'll find the behavioural incidents table and find the one that says incident date, you can see in here that we have an incident date type of date and time. So that might be quite useful for us, but we only want the date. So let's change that to date and see if that makes a difference. So now we've just got the date there, which will match what we have in the date table, because our date table, if we go back, you can see the date is in that format of date. So it's not a date time field. So let's see if that's made a difference. Right, that's not made any sort of difference. So where could the problem be? Let's double check our model view. So that's correct. The incident date and the date column are correctly attached. So one place we are going to look and try and change the date type is in Power Query. So you'll see on the Home tab, there's an option here called Transform Data. So you've got two options here. So you've got data source settings. This is where you can change your login details if you ever needed to. If you're doing this for building this for another school or another trust, you can change the credentials. And we have Transform Data. So this is going to open our Power Query editor. And it will look something like this. So you can see here you've got all your tables, and then you can see the information within those tables. And what's great here is you can actually add in extra columns using mQuery, encoding, similar to DAX, but completely different at the same time. And you can actually change column types. So we're going to go into our behavioural incidents table, and you can see here that our incident date is still set as a date time field, which obviously we changed within our date table, within our table on the previous page. So we're actually going to make the change in here. So we're going to click on incident date, and then we're going to go to the Transform tab, and you can see here there's an option called data type, date and time. So we're going to change that to date, and then we're just going to let the system run. Well, I've done that quite quickly. So you go, so you see it's changed it to an instant date, and you can see here on these applied steps, there's an option here called change type. So that's now put in what we wanted. And as you make changes to this table, all the steps will apply here. So you can delete steps and go back, or you can amend steps if you need to. So then we're going to click on the Home tab, and here we've got Close and Apply. There's obviously an option just to apply or just to close, but I'm going to do Close and Apply, and then we will wait for that to load. So you can see here it's now loading the changes we've made in our queries, and it will just take a minute or two just to load that data back into our model. Obviously, depending on how much data you have, depends on how long it takes. Right, so I'll come back to you now, and that's been loaded. And as you can see, we now have our termly information in here. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to the date table, and we're going to use the academic year as a filter on this page, so we can look just at this academic year. So you can see there over each term, we've had a certain amount of behavioural incidents. And then what we can do as well is we can also just change that field. So number of behaviour incidents. There we go. So then what we can also do is we can bring in the number of student involvements in as well. So that's the total number of behaviour incidents, but how many students does that include? So what we can do is we can go to the behavioural incident student involvement table, and we can drag the student unique ID, and we can get that to count as well. And we can count that as distinct. So 760 students have been involved in 22,083 incidents. So what we can do is we can rename this total students. And there we are. So we can see now exactly how many students have been involved in a behavioural incident over the last year. But what we also might want to do is the severity of these incidents. So actually, at the moment, this is counting positive and negative behaviour. So you can see in our behavioural incidents table, we have a severity. We've actually got two severity options. So again, if we use these as a filter, we can say, well, actually, we want anything which is a negative behaviour. So we can count just the negative incidents. There we go. That's looking a lot more positive. And then we can copy this table. And if we copy it, it still has the same severities attached. So now we can unselect those and do the positives, which we've only got 1 and 2. There we go. So you can see here we've had 1,300 negative incidents for 273 student involvements, and we've had a lot more positive ones. So we might want to rename this one here. So if we rename that positive incidents, there we go, and the total number of students involved. So we can see quite clearly there we've got negative behaviour and positive behaviour. So what else might we want to look at is maybe the behaviour type. So there is a column in each of the student involvements called behaviour name. So again, we might want to see what types of behaviours we're having. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag the behaviour name across. So you can see here all the different behaviour types. And then we can use the behaviour incident unique ID, and we can count that to see how many times we've had each of these. So I'm using count, not count distinct. There we go. And then if we rename that total behaviour, there we go. So now we can see what's our highest rating and what's our lowest rating behaviours. And on from that as well, if we only wanted to show like the top 10 of these, we could click in behaviour name, and in the option at the top here, so the filters for this visual, you've got behaviour name, there's a basic filtering, so you can actually just select particular ones you want to look at if you wanted to, and just say, well, I'm only interested in these ones. Or you can filter it, you can do a thing called top N. So if we use top N, we can say just show the top 10 items of behaviour name. And count and click apply filter. So there we go. Those are the top 10 items. So we've used the behaviour name there as the value, and we've told it just to count how many times the behaviour name is used. and that will then give us our top 10 behaviours. And then what we can do is we'll give that a title on the field here. So top 10 behaviour types. There we go. And again, we can spend more time tarting that up when we want to. And again, we need to make sure as well that we make this for the right level of severity. So again, we need to ensure that our basic filtering is on any negative behaviour. There we go. So there's all our negatives, our top 10 negative behaviours. So they make up 530 negative behaviour types out of the 1300. Okay, and then we might want to do something similar for our positives. So what are our top 10 positives? So we can just change that severity. There we go. There's our top 10 positive behaviour types. So let's have a bit of a change around here. There we go. So we've got our top 10 behaviours, and we can rename this our top 10 positive types. So as you can see, you can move things around the screen quite easily depending on how things change. None of us get it perfect the first time, so move columns around, make things look better, try different things until you get what you want. So we can see here, if we click on Autumn 1, we can then see, there we go, we can then see what are our top 10 behaviour types during the autumn term. And we can do the same with the summer term, autumn 2, spring term, and the numbers will change depending on what term you're looking at. So there we are. And then the last thing on here we might want to do is actually have the student names. So what we can do is do a count of the students and see how many positives they've had and how many negatives potentially. So we're going to use a student table to do this. We're going to find our column that is called student name. So we've got a first name, we've got a legal first name and a legal last name. But what we don't have here is like a whole student name. So why don't we look at creating that now? So as you can see, we have various options for names. We've got preferred first name, preferred last name, and then if we scroll up, we also have a legal first name and legal last name. But sometimes you just want that one name in a box that has their first name and their surname. So we're actually going to create a new column here. So we're going to make sure we click on the students table, and we're going to enter a new column. And it's a very simple piece of DAX formula here. And we're basically going to create like a concatenate formula, very similar to Excel. So you can see here, we're going to call it student name. And what I've done is you basically can type in the student's legal last name. And if you put the two ampersands here, you can actually put a comma in with a space if you wish to or not. And then you can put the student's first name. Now, what I've also done is I've opened the parentheses, the brackets, and I've put in their registration group. So I've found in the past I've had students with the same name in different year groups, and it actually doesn't tell the difference between the two students. So by putting in the current registration group of that student, it actually allows me to filter between the two and to see which year group a student is in. So once I've done that, it means that I can just drag the student name field across, and you can see here now I have all students' names with their form group attached to it. And again, depending on what you call your forms, depends on what you see here. You might want to put the current year group in instead, or their admission number, or something like that, just to kind of give you a unique verified identity number between multiple students. So now that I've got the student name in there, I can then go back up to the behavioural incidents, student involvement, and I can use that student unique ID to count how many times they've appeared, how many behaviour types they have. So you can see here, I've got a total number there. So let's just rename that. Total behaviours. So that's the total number of behaviours they have. And again, we need to add a severity level to it. So we're going to drag our severity option across as a filter on that visual. And now we can do an advanced filtering here. We've been using the basic one before. So the basic one is you click which ones you want. we're going to do an advanced filtering and see if it's less than 0, then apply that filter, which then brings up all the negatives. And again, we can then sort by the total behaviours. And we could even add on the total behaviours. We could do a top 10 if we wanted to. So we can say who are the top 10 students based on the student unique ID as a count. So this time we're using the student ID number as our counting option. So we're saying, well, how many times, who are the top 10 when you count the student unique ID from the behavioural instant student involvement table. So I'm going to click apply, and you can see there's our top 10 students. And by clicking on each one, you can see what their top 10 behaviours are for each term. Maybe you can't. No, you can't actually. Misled you on that one. And then we're going to do the same thing again, and then we're going to change that to the top 10 behaviours. So we will still want the top 10, but the severity this time was we're going to say it's greater than 0 and apply that, which this then gives our top 10 positives. There we go, total positives. And then you can see who our top 10 students are there. So obviously something's not worked the way I wanted it to work, because I was hoping that when you click on the names, it would filter the information down on the other tabs. So something then, as part of our problem solving, we go, well, why isn't that working? So let's try and figure out why these behaviour types aren't linking with the total behaviours here to see what we can do to fix that. So let's have a look at the issue we've got. So when we click on the name, some of the filters filter properly, but others don't. But if we click on the behaviour types, you can see it filters the other way. So now we have our top 10 students for that particular behaviour type. So it's filtering one way, but not the other. So what we can do is we can actually go back into our relationship table, so our model view, and see what the issue is. So we can see we've got the connection between the students and the behavioural instance by student involvements table set up correctly. And we have a link between the behavioural incidents and the behavioural incident student involvements. But you can see it's only a one-way filter. So at the moment, this table will filter this information, but not the other way around. So what we can do is we actually want to create a two-way connection there. So on the right-hand side under the properties table, you can see we have cross-filter direction single. We're going to change that to both and click apply. And now you can see we have this little up and down arrow because it's a two-way filter effectively. So now if we go back to our report view, we're going to click on a student name, and there we go, it's now filtered. So we can see that Emrys Adams, he's had 20 incidents, and these are the 20 incidents he's had of the top 10 behaviour types. Obviously, we'll give you more than 10 if some of them share the same number. And we can also see how many incidents he's had each term. So during the spring term 2, he had 7 incidents, and he only had 1 in spring term 1 and summer 1. And the same with the other students. We can click on each one of them, and the data will change depending on what we're looking at. So that's all it was. One simple little thing solved a problem for me, and it's now filtering the correct way that I want to. And again, you can create charts of these, so I could turn this into a chart if we wanted to. So it's counting the number of behaviour instances and the count number of students, and we can add data to it, data labels. Obviously, we can create cards that have a total number of incidents. Let's turn that one into it. Let's just put that back. There we go. So we can create a card, and we could say, well, let's count the total number of incidents and count. There we go. So we've had just shy of 21,000 incidents in total. And again, we can make that a positive or a negative instance just by adding a filter to it. So we can say anything less than 0. Let's apply that filter. And then we can rename this negative. There we go. And then we can create the same one and change the severity level to the positive side. And we can rename that then as well to positive. There we go. And then we can tartan these things up, just by taking away the totals on various I can do this all together actually. If you use the control button and highlight all the tables or any visuals that are the same, you can actually turn all the things off or all the things on all at the same time. So if we want to change borders, we can do that, and so on. So that's a very simple behaviour dashboard, hopefully covering all the sorts of things you would need, and also a few little hints and tips to make things work together. Because we don't always get it right the first time. I chop and change things, or I have to go and do some problem solving. Google was a very big friend of mine, along with members of the Arbor HQ Data and Power BI forum. So hopefully that's another area of your dashboard that's coming together. So if we look back, we have a characteristics dashboard, we have an attendance dashboard, and we've got a behaviour dashboard, all in one place. So yeah, hopefully this has been proved useful this week, and I will catch you next time.